I'm going to spend a few minutes breaking down the Sigma 85mm F/1.4 DHDN for Sony, because I know a lot of us have been hesitating at the last-minute add to cart screen, wondering if we're stretching our budget for a lens that will actually change the way we shoot. It's easy to get caught up in the hype of fast prime lenses, only to end up with a piece of glass that sits heavy on the mount, or that delivers soft images when you need the sharpest possible portraits. That hesitation is real, and the goal of this review is to give you a clear picture of what the lens does in the field, where it shines, and where it might fall short, so you can decide whether it's the right fit for your setup. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the category we're dealing with is portrait-focused short-telephoto primes. The 85mm focal length on a full-frame Sony mirrorless camera is the classic, flattering distance for head and shoulders work, and the f/1.4 aperture promises that creamy bokeh that many creators chase. But the real question is how the lens behaves when you pair it with the Sony A7 series, or the newer APS-C size ZV models, and whether the convenience of a lightweight, dust, and splash-proof design translates into daily usability. What I liked to test first was the handling on a day-long shoot at a local CAF, where I was moving between indoor low light and outdoor sunlight. The lens feels significantly lighter than many other 85mm f/1.4 options, which is a subtle but important win when you're holding a camera for hours. It slides onto the Sony mount with a solid click, and the focus mode switch on the side lets you toggle between continuous autofocus for candid street portraits and single AF when you're composing a more deliberate shot. The dedicated AFL, autofocus limit, button is a nice touch for those moments when you want to lock focus past a certain distance, like when you're shooting a group of subjects at varying depths and you don't want the camera hunting between them. In practical terms, the autofocus performance was surprisingly consistent. On the A7 IV, the lens locked onto eyes in sub-half-second times, even in dim interiors where the ambient light was under 10 lux. The focus speed didn't feel sluggish despite the ultra-wide aperture, which is a common concern for fast primes. When I switched to manual focus thanks to the iris ring that clicks and locks into place, it provided a tactile feel that made fine-tuning focus on a model's cheek a deliberate, controllable action. The click was audible enough to confirm the ring was set, yet not so loud that it would distract a subject. Now, the image quality. The record-high optical performance claim is a bit of a marketing phrase, but the results back it up. Across a range of test shots, the center sharpness held up at f/1.4, and by stopping down to f/2 the edges became notably cleaner without losing the smooth fall-off that makes the 85mm a portrait favorite. The bokeh was round and buttery, especially when the subject was a couple against a softly lit background, no harsh edges or fringing that you sometimes see on less refined designs. Color rendition was neutral, which gave me the flexibility to grade in post without having to fight an overly warm or cool baseline. There are, however, a couple of practical trade-offs that matter once you put the lens into a real workflow. The first is the maximum aperture's impact on depth of field control. At f/1.4 you get that shallow look, but the focus plane is razor-thin. In a fast-moving street scenario, a slight shift in the subject's position could push the focus off the eyes, requiring you to refocus quickly or accept a soft spot. This isn't a flaw, it's inherent to any f/1.4 lens, but it does mean you need to be mindful of the focus mode you choose, especially when shooting children or animals. The second issue is the lens's lack of built-in image stabilization. On a full-frame Sony body, the in-body stabilization can usually compensate, but if you pair the Sigma with an entry-level APS-C model that has weaker IBIS, you'll notice a bit more shake at slower shutter speeds. The extra weight of the aperture blades isn't huge, but it does tip the balance just enough that handheld low-light work can become a challenge if you're not comfortable increasing ISO. Who should consider picking this up? If you're a portrait photographer who already works within the Sony ecosystem and values a fast aperture for artistic control, the Sigma gives you that capability without the bulk of a heavier DSLR-style prime. Content creators who do a lot of interview or talking head work will appreciate the smooth focus ring and the ability to quickly shift between AF modes without digging into the camera menu. The dust and splash-proof construction also adds confidence when you're shooting in a coffee shop with a latte spill or outdoors under light rain. For anyone already owning a Sony full-frame mirrorless, the lens integrates